This podcast is brought to you by the Prospect Research Institute, a vibrant online learning community providing high-quality educational content, the opportunity to connect with peers, and an outlet for new ideas in the field of nonprofit fundraising research.
There's this phrase that goes something like, if you want to prosper for a year, grow potatoes. If you want to prosper for 5 years, grow grain. But if you want to prosper for a century, grow people.
Welcome to Prospect Research Chat Bites, a podcast by and for prospect research professionals. This is the third in the Career Curious series. I'm Jennifer Filla. Today, I'm talking with Stephen Lambert, advancement researcher and analyst at Susquehanna University.
So Stephen, I'm excited to hear about how you got into fundraising analytics, but I kind of get it. First, we're going to have to understand a little bit about your background, and I'm hoping that you'll be willing to share a little backstory. How did you get started in a career that finally ended up in fundraising analytics?
Right. Well, the brief answer is that fundraising analytics is congruent with who and what I am. I kind of stumbled across it after studying statistics and nonprofit management and research design in a formal program of study. And I had a professor mentor who said near graduation, you really need to consider prospect research and analytics, because what I've learned from you about you in our classes together is that would be a really good fit. So the background you mentioned, or the backstory, is that while I was a teacher for the first half of my career, I was also a lay leader of a nonprofit religious organization. I loved being a teacher. I loved education. I also fell in love with the third sector, meaning the nonprofit space. We have a government space. We have a market space. In our culture, that's a capitalistic market space. And since the 70s, we've been talking about a different space or sector, the third sector, in which we can work together to engage in civic activities, to try to fill gaps that governments cannot or does not fill, to try to undo some of the imbalance that a market economy inevitably creates. And so I deeply identified as a teacher, as a student. I fell in love with college campuses, so university advancement really is a good fit. I think that education is really our pathway to prosperity and happiness. This led me to be, to a certain extent, kind of an eternal student. I kept finding that I could do a little bit more, and I wanted to see how far I could go. But I wanted to know more and become capable at doing good, at working with my mind. So I got into a PhD program in nonprofit and community leadership. And so I got to study, for example, the charity and ethics of my church at the time. And that was very interesting because I found it lacking.
Uh-oh.
Became disenchanted.
Wow.
And separated myself from the organization in no uncertain terms. So in that process of learning, I was becoming more savvy, more sophisticated, more analytical because of the education. And I continued to grow in my, how would you call it, my vision of lifelong learning. Mm-hmm. All of us to be able to weave in and out of education throughout our lives, to be enriched, to be more capable, to be able to adapt to a highly dynamic modern world that places so many demands on us. And so I believe in growing people.
Growing people, I love it.
There's this phrase that goes something like, if you want to prosper for a year, grow potatoes. If you want to prosper for 5 years, grow grain. But if you want to prosper for a century, grow people. And
That's a great quote.
I love that. And so I believe that peace and freedom can come through abundant, uncensored education. And so I'm all about advancing education.
Can you tell me a little bit more about your teaching experience? Like, what kind of teaching? Children, adults?
Right, yeah. I did a little bit of elementary school tutoring and teaching before I graduated. Enjoyed helping immigrants' children to become more capable with English, and to help teachers who had never had the experience of immigrant children or English as a second language students in their classroom to um, have a more comfortable first experience with those children and understand them a little bit better. But upon graduating in my little rural area of Virginia at that time, there was not enough demand for English as a second language teachers. So I put off that certification until later in my career. And I started teaching Spanish in high schools. Absolutely loved that. Loved working with the children. Enjoyed, at least there in my 20s, to be kind of on stage, in front of students each and every day. But after a number of years, you teach Spanish 2 or 3 or 4 over and over and over. And for me, it became intellectually boring. I then got certified in English as a second language and taught adults in community-based programs, grant-funded programs. So my classrooms were like a United Nations. And even though I had spent time abroad, I lived in Spain for a couple of years. I traveled to Mexico about 3 times and spent about a total of a month down there. Having 10 different languages, 12 different languages in my classroom, and all of those cultures, and learning and growing with them and vicariously through them, that was an absolutely wonderful experience. And then I did a little bit of teaching at university campuses as well, teaching teachers how to teach languages.
Wow. So what I'm hearing is just this wonderful skill set building, because really the numbers in analytics, the statistics, is like another language. And you need to then translate that for the people who are actually going to benefit from the information, the frontline gift officers, the leadership. They have to actually understand it to be able to act upon it.
Yes. And I like your word translate, because I learned an awful lot being an interpreter in the classroom, but also in the court system, being a little bit of an interpreter there, and for commercial industries as well. It's a very nerve-wracking experience. It's a highly mind-expanding experience, but also being a teacher, you're a translator of ideas, taking a huge amount of information and distilling it down into some very essential bits, and translating that or adapting that to your listener to make sure that it's, shall we say, edible and understandable. Consumable, there you go.
That's great. Well, one of the reasons I was so excited to talk to you today is because you really, although you had your education preparing you and a mentor to suggest coming into prospect research and fundraising analytics, so many people want to come into prospect research right now. It's a growing field. It's a fun field with a lot of different choices and tasks you can do in one job.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not always sure how to get into it, and many struggle with how to say, here I've been studying, or I have this skill set, but it's not exactly what's on the job description. How did you bridge that? How did you find yourself a job?
Right. I probably came at it from an angle that perhaps many in prospect research would, and that angle perhaps is a bit bookish. In fact, the first thing that I did after having a mentor suggest the career to me was, of course, do some internet search on filling out my understanding the of the profession and create a mental model. But then part of that also was to go to what are the major resources that are educating prospect researchers or are speaking about exactly what prospectors are doing and should do. And so the first three books that I purchased and read were your and Helen Brown's book. I read that cover to cover, word for word, underlined, post-it noted, bent over corners, you name it. Even started creating a spreadsheet and calculating capacity and started going out to websites to look at significant philanthropists and practice a bio, given your templates. I purchased and read Cecilia Hogan's book, purchased and read Josh Burkholz's book. I joined APRA Virginia and attended their fall conference very soon after graduation. I attended APRA Maryland. And that's where I got to actually meet Josh Burkholz. And he was giving a presentation on some of the key characteristics of individuals doing analytics. And I believe, if I remember correct, his conversation was one of, if you have these skills, market them. And this is how it fits into prospect research and analytics. And this is also how it is congruent with you if you're already a prospect researcher so that you can do analytics. And he had a type of Venn diagram up where he was calling attention to curiosity, which I believe all of us in prospect research and data analysis have. And I have an indomitable curiosity and persistence to know and learn. And then he was also talking about statistics. And so I was thinking about my college classes in statistics. And then, of course, he was talking about research, knowing how to get information and formulate questions and answer questions and so forth. And right there, he was also talking about fundraising knowledge and understanding. Mm-hmm. And, at the center, then, pulling all of those pieces together is a sweet spot. And I was thinking to myself, wow, that's congruent also with who and what I am. I can do this and I should do this. And he was also talking about a great wave of change, bringing analytics into prospect research. And I was thinking, oh, this is exciting. I could be part of something new and cutting edge. I'm a career switcher. I'm excited, but nervous and scared about, getting out of the classroom and taking this new trajectory. But if I'm riding a wave that I can be excited about and really contribute to, then this could be a great entry into the profession.
Wow. So Josh was talking to you.
He was. and like a geek, I went up after the Maryland conference and got him to sign my copy of his book.
Yay! That's great. That's wonderful. But, I think what I perceived from your job hunt, because you had contacted me and I wasn't paying attention enough to realize that you were, just how far you were segueing from one career to another. There's really quite a gap in between what you had been doing and what you wanted to do. And then I saw you writing blog posts, or, there were the Pulse posts on LinkedIn.
Right.
And really applying all the stuff you're learning as you have, go to these conferences and talk to people and putting that into a blog post and really speaking intelligently. And I thought, gosh, this guy is really methodical. Was that part of a plan to help get yourself exposure so that when people were checking you out as a potential job applicant, they'd find it?
I would like to, I guess, take one step back and maybe even more fully round out my answer to your question before. As I was reading those books that I mentioned, I was applying to positions and not yet exerting any kind of voice on LinkedIn. I was definitely already there in that space, but not a contributor, just using it to have a public faith. And I was applying to positions, interviewing, and finding that many of them were almost interested in filling a factory type position of come, sit, and write reactive bios for us. But there was one that was very different, and that was here at the university, Susquehanna University, where I am. I interviewed, and with my supervisor, now supervisor, was Josh Burkholz's book. And she had and expressed a vision of bringing new skills and introducing analytics into her fundraising shop. And so there was going to be uniquely here an opportunity to, yes, learn the craft of traditional prospect research, but to apply my unique skills, my new skills, practice them, hone them, and go into this new area of analytics and predictive modeling to enhance prospect research, but also potentially beyond prospect research and the whole fundraising shop. So now that your second question there, the most recent one, could you remind me where to go there, because I want to segue into that.
So I'm wondering if you had planned to have that kind of exposure on LinkedIn,
right?
Articles, prior to getting a job. Was that part of your job hunting strategy?
Yeah, the strategic aspect was definitely there. For example, I leveraged LinkedIn to immediately put up my first practice at a bio on a philanthropist who was significant in the regional area of Virginia, to show that I could research and relate that information in a traditional format. As far as pulse posts and those extended blog-like posts on LinkedIn, I couldn't not do immediately after getting into this position, because it was so mind-expanding to be here. And it was also so connective with my training in a nonprofit program. And you need to also understand that for me personally, and because of the doctoral training, I could not stay quiet.
I love it. That's wonderful.
Throughout a graduate program, you are forced to write and analyze and give voice. Plus, also in a nonprofit program, during those 6 years that I was in that graduate program, I was also an activist entrepreneur, establishing a community coalition to advocate for nonprofit professionals that had professional degrees that, upon immigrating into this country, were driving taxis or working in slaughterhouses, even though they had, say, a master's degree in biochemistry or had a Juris Doctorate from their country. And so they were very much disenfranchised and suffering. And so I created a coalition. I lobbied on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. with my congressmen and others. So I developed, a personality where I thought that I believe that I need to give voice to important concepts as a teacher, or give voice to disenfranchised individuals, just as being, a citizen in my community or country. So with all of that perfect storm, I got so excited. For example, my first predictive model became a much better filter for finding prospects of sufficient quality to pass on to major gift officers compared to traditional descriptive models such as purchased screenings or in-house additive models of affinity or whatnot. I got so excited about that I couldn't not share. And so I started putting that voice out there because I'd been taught to do so, because I wanted to do so, and because it was exciting. And
That's
yes,
great.
there is the strategy there of self-promotion, and but also when you put yourself out there, you're engaging this professional community. Other people note you, so it's not necessarily hubris or ego that you're satisfying, but you're participating. Other people connect with me, and then I see their posts. Sometimes we respond, sometimes we email each other, or we give each other a call, or maybe we get stuck on a problem and then we call. And so it's creating a community because of that participation. It also enhances some dialogue in the office here. So I strongly urge anyone that has a voice or desire to write to engage. It's not just self-promotion, it's participation in a community, and we need that community. It's a special space where we can advocate for each other, we can cheer each other on, we can have answers to questions, and we can advance our profession as well.
That's wonderful. It's so true. Or you might get invited to a podcast interview.
Right. Or you may even have the experiences I did where Case calls you up and says, we need to fill more speaker spaces in this conference on the other side of the country. Will you come?
That's wonderful. It's wonderful. And I think also, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, when you put yourself out there in the public space, it does open you up. I know I feel vulnerable when I'm opened up to the public space, but I think the reward is there when you engage with others and connect. And people are kind in our field. I think they're very generous. Has that been your experience too?
Yeah.
It's worth it. You might sweat a little at that presentation, but afterwards,
Yes.
you're the best people.
No, that is very, very true. And we work in a solitary field. That's my perspective at the moment. Sometimes we're in a little cubicle or in a little corner office, and it can be very quiet. And we don't have very many opportunities to step up and away from the desk. So having these connections is very, very valuable. It gives you energy. It gives you identity. The camaraderie is very, very valuable because I don't think we get the attention that perhaps we deserve. The value of our work is tremendous, but it's not necessarily the work that brings the accolades at the end of the day when the revenues are counted or when the awards are given.
It's sort of like playing soccer, where we are the people, the players on the field that are assisting and passing, and the frontline fundraisers and the leadership, they're striking the goal.
Yes.
And so I agree, we often get overlooked, or it's just not as exciting to talk about how the ball got close to the goal.
So in that atmosphere, if you contribute a post or you contribute a comment, you answer someone's question, or you pose a question and you get a little bit of a help, or even if you just get a like or a thumbs up from someone, that is very, very valuable.
Well, not only are we communicating with each other, but because we are out in the public sphere, in these public online communities such as LinkedIn, sometimes we're playing the role as translator. Sometimes there's a fundraiser who's interested in analytics, how that could benefit their work, and they're reading your post. Have you ever had anyone reach out from the other side?
Yes. Sometimes it's the or organization wanting to sell something, but there are individuals reaching out from business, uh, analytics. There are people reaching out from all types of fundraising shops. There are people reaching out from statistics. There are people reaching out, be it college age or career switchers or people already in the profession, just wanting to take the next step, whether that next step is into this field or taking the next step into one of our more, more modern or practicing skills. Maybe it's, a prospect researcher in California wanting to, do analytics, or it's someone in business analytics who is struggling with the divide between salespeople and the analysts. Maybe the intuitive, experiential mindset versus a more analytical mindset, and the clash that can sometimes result. And you put a post out there about how you see that in fundraising. And others reach out to you somehow with the little tags that we put on our LinkedIn posts and the groups that we attach our posts to, others who share. Mm-hmm. It brings others in.
That's great. That's good to hear. It makes it a lot more fun. I think sometimes we don't realize how many people we can touch and learn from outside of even our own industry. That's good to hear. So I'm also wondering, what kind of advice, if any, would you have for someone who's seeking a job? I heard you being exceptionally prepared so that when the opportunity at Susquehanna opened itself, you were ready. You had read the book. What other kind of advice would you have for someone seeking or thinking about changing jobs or entering the field?
Well, I believe I've already communicated that I believe in lifelong learning. So I want to make very clear that I believe in people making changes, determining their futures, thinking about it critically and taking one step at a time. One step at a time, meaning buying and reading the book, meaning doing some internet search and finding certain skills, and then you go and try to increase those skills, say in your ability to use Microsoft Excel. And I would also give some advice about, how should I put it, that I guess there are particular skills that I would suggest someone try to work on obtaining or enhancing. In what I do, it's very important that you have data access skills. And so if you get involved and understand what particular shop you're interested in or applying for needs, there's unfortunately a great deal of diversity. Data access in one shop might be that you can read and use Microsoft Excel sheets and maybe just operate in a database that's really very simple. Whereas in other shops, it might mean that you need to understand a programming language such as SQL or SQL in order to access data and query to get the right kind of data out. I would also encourage everyone to enhance their data manipulation skills, how to change data inside of spreadsheets, statistics skills in order to be able to find helpful information in the data. It's also been very helpful to have what I would call research design skills, meaning that you have critical thinking and understanding about how to set up a business question or a project, and pose hypotheses, and order your information in a way that you can say, okay, if I put together A, B, and C, and perform this method or statistic, then the result is connected to the question. I think it's good to be on top of what analytics we in fundraising are talking about are very helpful for us. I think it's good I mentioned critical thinking. Well, I think we also need to have conversations about what data-driven decision making is. And communication is very, very important. I guess I got a little bit lucky coming from education. There's so much that I just naturally absorbed as a result of that profession that is really paying off in how I approach communicating some things, whether it's in a LinkedIn post or in a presentation in the office. Does that fit sufficiently at what you're interested in there?
Yes, I love the communication piece because it ties in with your behavior. So not only did you develop the skills, both obtaining your degrees and doing your own personal research and testing it out as it pertains specifically to prospect research and fundraising analytics, but that communication piece, that's a slippery target, and it's something that we're starting to see addressed more now, like through our association, APRA, where we need these leadership skills. We need to be able to not just hand a spreadsheet over to a frontline fundraiser who has no interest in reading the data that way. Mm-hmm. How can we interpret and communicate it persuasively? So, yeah.
I think we can tease that out a little bit more. We're talking about communication in words and adjusting those words to the fundraiser versus the analyst versus the executive. Mm-hmm. Words that are not necessarily the words that we use in our office. And words also that are chosen according to not only the audience, but the task at hand and the degree of understanding of the person that you're talking to. Mm-hmm. And your ultimate target. What do you want that person to understand? And so what is the language that is necessary just to get them, to that point and to understand what it is you have to offer? But then also there's another side to communication there, and that I would add would be the visuals, visual communication. Can you create in graphical form by writing on the whiteboard or going into PowerPoint and putting in some lines and colors and then saving it as an image to put into a document, to communicate an issue, to communicate a solution, to communicate a problem, to communicate a result, a strength, a weakness. And I mentioned in there ideas. Can you communicate ideas? Can you entertain multiple ideas and multiple ways of looking at something at the same time and come out of that with the words or visual representation of those multiple perspectives that truly advance the mission of your organization or truly strike at the heart of the business question that you may have in front of you?
Yes, there are many pieces, and you've been practicing. You've been practicing in your PhD. You've been practicing since you got the job. I think, and that, it fits in with what you've said about continual learning. We don't get really good at this until we keep practicing and keep adding to our skill set.
And you mentioned my LinkedIn post earlier. That's partly me practicing my voice. What comes before one of those posts is me not knowing, not having the words. And then suddenly in the office or doing my laundry at home, it occurs to me, oh, now I get it. And now I think I have the words to not only express that problem, but to express what I believe is the solution. And so then I can excitedly sit down for, half of a Saturday or half of a Sunday and carefully put together one of those pieces that allows me to express my new understanding and allows me to feel like I'm maybe helping others.
Definitely helping others. I've read your posts. They're wonderful.
Thank you. You're very kind.
So what's your next step? Now you're here, what's your dream job, your next step going forward? Because I think you're the kind of person that always has a next step in mind.
The dream is not necessarily a job, but a state of being useful, valued, prosperous, and engaged in a good cause with good people on a team, not feeling isolated. So my intention is to continue in university advancement and to continue to discover how to apply my most advanced skills in my advanced skills in statistics, my advanced skills in strategic leadership and research. I want to avoid hubris in my response here, but the future is unclear. To some extent, I believe in letting things grow organically. I am impatient and I want things to happen overnight, and I get frustrated, with my salary or with what I get to do on Monday morning or something like that, just like anyone does. But I think the future looks very exciting. I need to be where I can apply my most advanced skills. I need to be learning alongside others. I need to, next step-wise, lead a team instead of being an entry-level prospect researcher and analyst. And like I said before, I need to prosper. So, I'll be looking for ways to increase my salary. And that may be in the shop I'm at, that may be in another shop. There's so many things out there to experience and do. It's exciting. So my eyes are open. My mind is open. Other people are contacting me and asking, that same question, what is your next step? Could that next step be with us? And that's flattering, but it's also nerve-wracking. And there are also limitations. I have a spouse of 27 years and a kid in college and parents and in-laws. And so there are limitations as to, where I'll go and so forth. But I think it's prosperity and a space where I can feel valued and productive. That's necessarily more than having a job X, Y, or Z.
Good for you. That's a great answer. I love it. It's a philosophy, a way of being, as opposed to a constraint.
Yes.
Well, I so appreciate you sharing with us today. It was fascinating to learn about your journey, and hopefully people will be inspired about joining our profession and the growth in our profession, the opportunities. So until next time, Stephen, which I'm sure will be in a couple of years from now when you embark on something new.
Well, it's been a pleasure. I greatly value what you're doing. I think this is exciting that we get our experiences out there. It will definitely inspire others to think new thoughts about themselves and their value and their skills and where they can go. But I think it's also inspiring us to have new and interesting thoughts about the profession and what we can be doing so that we're prepared for the future. And that's important.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was Stephen Lambert, advancement researcher and analyst at Susquehanna University, in the third of our Career Curious series. For more prospect research resources, Join the resource collections community at prospectresearchinstitute.org.